Ow! Jump scare.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Galactic Armory. My name is Oh God, why did he shave his beard? Never do that again. And it's just me today. Jamie's actually setting up a new location for us. It's going to be a new production space. We'll do a lot more videos and content creation, so stick around for more news on that. But today I'm going to be doing a little bit of myth busting. So I've seen some content creators and other people in the cosplay 3D printing verse throw out some pretty big numbers telling people how long it takes to sand a 3D printed helmet to prepare it for painting. I've seen ranges from half a dozen to a dozen hours for something as small as just a helmet. Now, having done a full-sized, like life-sized Master Chief, a life-sized Arbiter, I knew that that number for something like this small was just not accurate. But I didn't know exactly how inaccurate that number was. So today, I'm gonna test exactly how long it takes to sand a 3D printed helmet like these two to get it ready for painting. We're gonna be testing out this new filler that we really like from Seymour. And we're gonna be giving a little bit of a review on that and how this product has permanently changed our prop making finishing workflow. Before we get started, I have a couple of ground rules that I wanna cover because I wanted to make this as fair and accurate to the average user as possible. Ground rule number one, I'm not gonna be counting setup or takedown time of like tools, materials, supplies, anything like that, because I also have to set up a camera, and I just wanted this test to focus on hands-on, like actually sanding physically time. So not counting setup or teardown. Number two, not counting dry or cure time. I will get a range of like when I started the project based on, what it looks like now, or when I finished sanding, but dry and cure times can be done overnight or when you're at work or anything like that. So not counting dry or cure times. And number three, the most painful one for me, is no power tools. Not gonna be using any mouse sanders, any like orbital sanders, any detail sanders, anything like that. It's all gonna be hand sanding. Using power tools would be great. I'd love to have used them. They definitely would have cut down on the overall finish time, but like I said, I want it to be as baseline as possible. You're gonna spend this much time, or approximately this much time, hand sanding, and that's it. With those rules, let's cover the print a little bit real quick. Both of these helmets actually were printed on our Bambu Lab X1 carbon 3D printers at 0.16 layer height. The layer height on the print definitely helps cut down on the overall sanding time. The more detailed and the smaller the layer lines are, the better time that you're gonna have sanding it all. It makes for the process a lot faster. And the X1 carbon Bambu printers are absolutely amazing. We have like 40 of them now. I only wish they had a bigger build volume, but Master Chief here was printed in 3 main pieces with a bunch of little extras on that printer, and we loved it. But with all that said, let's get right into the build. For each step of the build, I had this little stopwatch here, and I kind of covered all of the steps so far into several categories. So in this video, I'm just gonna be covering sanding, and everything before that, I'm gonna be covering painting and the complete helmet build in another video. This one, we're just gonna be focusing on assembling and sanding. For each step, I wrote the date, what step I did, and exactly how long it took me on this little stopwatch here. First thing we have to do is assemble the helmet. This is pretty simple. We use CA glue and a spray activator. That spray activator really helps accelerate the glue curing. Otherwise it would take like a minute of holding it together, and the spray activator cuts it down to like 5 seconds. So that's a pro tip. Definitely love that combo, use it all the time. But that only took about 5.5 minutes. And that's assembly. I put all of the parts of the helmet together, except for these little vent details on the side and these little earpieces here. Those I'm actually gonna be resin 3D printing to cut down on the sanding time a lot, because sanding such small little things can be very tedious, very time consuming. It's much better to resin print those, get them out of the way, so you can spend more time on your helmet. From there, the Seymour filler came into play. This is a high build filler, very similar to like Rust-Oleum filler and Sandable. Jamie actually saw it like on an Instagram ad. It's mostly used in the auto body industry, like a lot of our day-to-day tools are, but we wanted to give it a try. This stuff is incredible. Not only is it very high build, it's got a very nice spray to it, just so many good things about it. All that would make it great, but Duplicolor, Rust-Oleum even kind of does that. Where this stands apart is dry time. We are able to start sanding roughly half an hour after laying down some pretty thick coats. First, I lay down 3 coats of this filler primer just to get a nice high build. I weighed around half an hour between each one, but then I can get right to sanding. With something like Rust-Oleum filler and Sandable, I would have to wait like overnight. Otherwise it gets really tacky because it's not fully cured yet. But with this stuff, we found that it can cure in like half an hour, and you can sand it right after that half hour. But after putting 3 layers of this Seymour stuff on it, that took roughly like 5.5 minutes. I was finally able to start sanding. Now my first pass of sanding is just the raw print with that filler on it. I like to do that just to get a nice, base layer before we move on to our next step. I believe I used 120 grit sandpaper, nothing too rough because this filler is pretty easy to sand. It doesn't need to be anything low grit or anything like that. That took 10 minutes. That was it. That was the first pass. I used a vacuum just to suck off all the dust and everything like that. Otherwise, we're good to go on to the next step. Next, I'm gonna be using SLA resin and UV light. Now this has kind of been our go-to method for a while now. We use the UV light to cure the photoreactive resin. That resin hardens and it fills in the layer lines for us. Now you obviously wanna wear gloves, respirator. You need a good setup for this method, but it works wonders at being very easy to apply and a very precise way. We use like a little paintbrush to just kind of brush it on very thin layers. You don't want to go too thick or else only the top layer will cure and the bottom layer will still be liquid underneath. We don't want that. But applying that resin, curing it with the UV light, and applying some Bondo glazing and spot putty around some of the worse areas, like the bottom side where the print touched the supports. That's always gonna be a little bit rougher than the top side. So applied a lot of Bondo and a lot of resin in those areas. That only took 18 minutes. So far we've got a pretty good start on the helmet and we're still under half an hour really. So after the Bondo and resin, we go back to the hand sanding. And this is where I wish I had some power tools. The resin technique works great, but this resin is incredibly hard. It takes a lot of elbow grease or a good mouse sander to really take it down and smooth it out. Here I think I used like even a 60 grit piece of sandpaper and just went to town. My shoulder did get a little bit tired. It took around 13 minutes to sand the helmet down at this stage. Also not a very long time, but you are furiously sanding, but only 13 minutes, 18 seconds for that first pass. I'm gonna be doing more filling with the Seymour paint after that. Just kind of fill out more of the lines and identify any spots that still need more filling, more Bondo, more resin, things like that. And that's what I do for the next couple times. Spraying filler primer only takes like a minute of active spray time, and Bondo, applying more of that, took 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Then I touch up parts with the resin. Now I'm using the paintbrush to really refine, touch up small areas, small details that need filled in that can't be applied with huge brush strokes. That took almost 12 minutes. So still not too much, but compared to sanding, it's just about as much time as I spent sanding. This next pass of sanding was the big one. Here I used a higher grit. I believe I went to 120. That was really to smooth out all of the areas now, make sure that every part of the helmet was smooth. It had been sanded at least once. That took almost 18 minutes. Thus far, I've spent less than an hour really on sanding, if my math is right. I have a grand total at the end. After that last sanding coat, I'd lay down like a little coat of paint just to see if there's any other spots that need adjustment or anything like that before apply more Bondo. Then wet sanding. Now wet sanding is always kind of our final pass of sanding. It really smooths out the surface, makes everything very nice, sleek, uniform. I believe we go up to 600 grit when sanding this helmet. Generally we only go to around 300, but I wanted to take it a little bit further. But if you're doing something like a Mando, you need a nice glossy black surface, you can go up to like 1500 or even higher. But after that wet sand, that is the last sanding step that I have on my list. Otherwise, we're gonna be applying like base paints, moving on to the green, taping, latexing, weathering, all of this. That is all that it took to get this helmet ready for painting. Everything that I went through. So let's go through the total that I have for just the sanding and assembling phases. Sanding took a total of 103.5 minutes.
Hi, this is AI Aaron here with the correction. This 105 minutes is actually the filling and sanding combined. I spent only about half that actually sanding.
So that's an hour and 43 minutes. I set a goal for myself to get it under 2 hours, and I wasn't actually sure that I would meet that goal. But yeah, hour 43 minutes is all it took of hand sanding, no power tools, of hand sanding, you know, actually scrubbing this helmet to get it ready for painting. And I did miss one spot here on the little cheek area, just right above, but that'll be very easy to fix. Afterwards, it'll take me 10 minutes. The assembling only took 5.5 minutes. So the sanding and assembling took just short of 110 minutes. Still less than 2 hours to get a helmet ready for painting. I'm pretty happy with the results. I knew that sanding a helmet did not take as long as some people like it to make it out. And honestly, if you want to be a prop maker, you're gonna have to get used to sanding a lot. There is a lot of sanding, whether you're in woodworking or 3D printing or cosplay. Even EVA foam requires its own type of sanding. If you want to be a prop maker, you're gonna have to come to terms with sanding. So get an audiobook or just be with your inner thoughts if you're very brave.
See how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
And just grit your teeth. You know, it's less than 2 hours, and this is spread out over, let's see. I started on May 24th, and by the time I got to wet sanding, it was June 11th. So let's see, that's like 18 days. And I was doing this between all my other work. There were days where I didn't get to it and just had too much stuff to do. I could have really compressed this list down. The only thing we waited on, really, God, I don't even think we were waiting on very much. With this filler, how quickly it cures, it can drastically cut down the total amount of time, one, but also like waiting. So you can cut down your waiting. I feel like, this might be a challenge for a future video, we could prepare a helmet and get it ready for sanding in 1 day if we really applied ourselves. Your results may vary, obviously. Having a great 3D printer like the X1 Carbon helps a lot. Obviously, that's a bit of a higher end commercial grade printer that, you know, not everyone has access to, but a mouse sander is like $30 and it will help you so much. But we've sanded helmets at 0.3 layer heights for years. All of Master Chief and all of Arbiter are at 0.3 layer height. Like I said, these are at 0.16, so almost half or twice as many layers. If people are discouraging you or telling you that you need to buy a cast or, you know, a vacuum formed piece compared to a 3D print because sanding takes so long, it doesn't. We got this Master Chief helmet ready to paint in less than 2 hours. This Kabuto helmet might take a little bit more just because it's such a weird shape with a lot of details, but Master Chief is one of those iconic helmets. Phase 2 Clone Trooper will probably take much less because there's less detail, less, you know, ridges, lines everywhere. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, I'm gonna be covering exactly how long it takes me to finish this Master Chief helmet, along with all this data that I've already gathered. We're gonna include the painting, the weathering, and making the visor. But I hope you enjoyed seeing exactly how long it took me to sand it, because this stuff right here, definitely a game changer for us here at Galactic Armory. We love it, we're gonna keep buying it up, and I'd highly recommend it if you're into prop making or 3D printing helmets. But thank you all for watching. I'll see you again in the next video.
This is the Galactic Armory. This is take one. Hi. No, hold on. Hi. Wait, I f***ed up. Hi. Nope. Hi. This is AI. Oh, I f***ed up. God damn it. Alright, for real.